education sector. Be there, don't go away, because several important issues we have to look at on the program this afternoon. Welcome to the Bumper Show. Welcome to ELBC, Dr. Way.
Making a debut on the bumper for the first time. I'm happy to be here with you, Jab.
And indeed, you are welcome, and feel free, feel at home, because I'm sure LBS is your place.
Yeah, sure. But this is my first time on the bumper show.
Okay. I wanted to start first of all by telling us, because sometimes people hear about LICOSESS, but they just don't know what LICOSESS is, what it does, and all of that. So can you start by, giving us a little brief history of what LICOSESS is?
Okay, I want to say thank you. When I received the call, I said, Bob Davis, I've listened to your presentation severally, and I'm happy to sit with you. Good evening to the listening public. Of course, I'm Dr. Benjamin Wehye. I always like to say I'm the best teacher in Liberia. That's the award won in 2023 by the Liberia Development Award, and I'm carrying that title until 2025. So
okay,
I usually like it was merited, so I like to talk about it. And I'm the president of LICOSESS and the president of the National Principal Association of Liberia. LICOSESS stands for the Liberian Cooperative Standard Education School System. So every time you hear LICOSESS, LI is Liberian, CO is cooperative, the first S is standard, the second S is LICOSESS, Liberian Cooperative Standard Education School System. It was formed in 1994 by a group of Liberian professional teachers and administrators. At the time LICOSESS was formed, all of the RTTIs were closed. KRTTI, ZRTTI, WRTTI, due to the intermittent civil crisis. We understood that at the time, of course, I was just 9 years old by then. The closure of the RTTIs and the brain drain in the classroom as a result of the flight of the attrition rate of qualified teachers from the Liberian classroom, led this group of professional teachers and administrators to come in and see how they could train in-service teachers who were already in the classroom. So the civil wars caused a lot of teachers to leave the classroom, some of them going to Africa, Guinea, Ghana, and the rest of it. But then intermittent schools were opening and closing in several parts of Liberia. You'll notice that school will open in Maserado and Nema school, close school, or going on in Maryland. So between the 90s all the way to the 2000s, you'll see some places school open, school closed. There was this situation where we usually say where the qualified are not available, the available become qualified. Yeah. So there was an infiltration of a lot of unqualified people, even on the government payrolls in private schools. So this group of people came together and said, look, since the government-run RTTIs are closed, why can't we form ourselves into a cooperative, since we already have the degrees and the expertise to train these in-service teachers, since they are already teaching our children? And that was how LICOSESS started in 1995, recognized as a C certificate providing institution. And then the then Minister of Education in 1997, Evelyn Kanakai, who was signing LICOSESS certificate by then, recommended the institution, because of the work it was doing, to the National Commission on Higher Education to be elevated to an Associate of Arts degree. Of course, they got a letter of recognition from the National Commission to start offering Associate of Arts degree in 2004. But from 2005, when the new government took over, to 2017, there was this struggle of the re-accreditation of LICOSESS, because specifically all of what I talk about happened during the civil crisis, and there was no legitimacy of either the National Commission on Higher Education and the Ministry of Education. So I can say fully, LICOSESS gained its final accreditation for Associate of Arts degree in 2017 under my administration, and it was elevated to a full Bachelor of Arts degree granting institution in 2021 by the National Commission on Higher Education. So currently, LICOSESS offer education, Associate of Arts degree in 7 different disciplines: early childhood education, primary education, school administration, mathematics, general science, social studies, language arts, And then the general education area is for the C certificate. And of course, at bachelor degree level, we offer bachelor in secondary education, primary education, school administration. It is in the secondary education that people do their major in chemistry, biology, and physics. So considering LICOSESS as it stands now is a single faculty institution only focused on education, unlike many of the institutions of higher learning in Liberia that have several faculties, including sociology, biology, general science, nursing. LICOSESS is currently the biggest privately run teacher training college in Liberia with over 2,200 students in 6 counties. In Maserado alone, we have 1,700 students in enrollment. Okay. About 1,221 of those students are being sponsored by the United States Agency for International Development, USAID.
Is it one of that tests?
Yeah, the USAID test program, transforming the education sector for teachers and students. Okay. And we are proud to be one of the biggest partners to USAID implementing that project currently.
I spoke to one of your students because I was about to talk to you, and one of your students, we had a little talk, and I asked, what would you like to ask Dr. Wehye when he sit on the when he talked about this test program, but he said I should ask you whether or why it's not at other branches, but it's only at the central branch.
So it is very important for students to understand that even the accreditation of LICOSESS, for example, the bachelor degree program is only for Maserado. Okay. You realize that there must be some assessment done on the institution facilities and all of that by the National Commission. And so as it stands now, the Maserado, there are 6 counties from the previous administration. There are 6 counties that have been recognized to offer our programs. We were initially in 12 counties, but 6 of them were closed down after the assessment of the Ministry of Education. And we saw the need to transition ourselves from this emergency mode to a more sustainable mode where you can locate LICOSESS at a particular campus or particular facility, office space, and all of that. So yes, the student is right. We don't have the scholarship spread across all of LICOSESS branches because we have to work on the facilities that we have in most of those places, library, laboratories, faculty, and the rest of it. So currently it's only on the central campus that have been approved for that. Gradually, USAID have extended that, thanks to them, to our Bannersville campus, and to our Johnsonville campus. Okay. But the rest of the others, there are still accessibility or feasibility going on, and in the future that will happen.
I just saw on your page, like about 20 minutes ago, you posted this communication from the president, appointing you as member of the National Education Advisory Board. And let me say congratulations on your preferment. But what is this this National Education Advisory Board? Because it's news to me, I'm sure to others.
Yeah, it is quite new, and I want to say thanks to President His Excellency Joseph Yuman Boakai for establishing the National Education Advisory Board. This is the first of its kind, but it is not new in context. This board was called for by the Education Reform Act of 2011. Okay. You may be aware the Education Reform Act is the supreme law to say passed by the national legislature to guard the educational activities of this country. And that law, every education stakeholder has consistently been calling for the implementation of that law. And as one part of that law calls for the establishment of the National Education Advisory Board. And the law itself named those that are supposed to be on that board. I'm on that board not as Benjamin Wehye. I'm on that board because I'm the president of the National Principal Association. Okay. Madam Mary Yuma is on that board because she's the president of the National Teachers Association. Okay. Sewala is on that board because he's the president of the National PTA Association. Now, the term of reference as prescribed by the Education Reform Act is that we are the sole guardians when it comes to the implementation of the Education Reform Act. We represent the voices of ordinary Liberian education stakeholders when it comes to the Ministry of Education and their policy making. You may be aware the current structure of the ministry is so much centralized that every other activities from the counties and decision makings, employment, recruitment, and rest of it is usually centered around central administration. Whereas the Education Reform Act practically call for more decentralizations of the education activities of the Ministry of Education. And so the essence of the National Education Advisory Board is to help to sit on the table and give suggestions to the Minister of Education and those at the Ministry of Education on how education is being viewed or how it should be carried out by, the local stakeholders, those from the counties, those who are into the day-to-day running of education across the country. Okay. So anything that affects the ordinary Liberian when it comes to issues of tuition and fees, issue of accessibility, issues of equity, issues of quality, issues of the relevance of education. We, of course, serve as an advisory. Of course, you hear the word advisory. We offer suggestions and advice representing the voice of the ordinary Liberians, and it's left with the minister to take that. So the president has set up the board. I think what the next step is for us the Minister of Education is the chairman of the board, chairleader of the board. Okay. What is left is that every member of the board will have to collect their letters and send introductory letter to the Minister of Education calling for an orientation. And once that orientation is done, we can now pull out our term of reference from what the Education Reform Act calls for. Our term of reference all spelled out there, nothing more, nothing less. And then we can begin to roll out what our terms and responsibilities are.
Because when I saw the letter and I, compare it with your recent, address at your the graduation, the fifth graduation of LICOSESS in Bond County over the weekend, where you also emphasized the need for to be implemented, because I know you spoke about many things. You spoke about decentralization of education activities, and since you're on the advisory board now, I'm sure you are among those in the right seat to push for all of these things that you call for recently.
That's the reason why I almost turned down your invitation, so that I don't come on the radio to say what I should be saying inside. Okay. But what I can say for sure is that the Minister of Education has started on a good note. Okay. The fact that she was able to go across the country to see what is happening there and coming back. One of the statements that I heard from her that I commended her during my remarks in Bonn was the fact that she was so angry about this perpetuation of volunteer teachers across the country, people volunteering here and there. And I can say this to you, the minister is able to end this whole cycle of volunteerism if she can just abide by the Education Reform Act of 2011. You see, let me say this. Previous ministers before the minister have always gone for tours across the country. Every time they appoint a new minister of education, they go for tour and see. But this is my opinion. I believe that the data that was collected from Prof. Soni's time on the education tour is at the ministry. I also believe that, let's assume that now that the minister have gone around and seen what has happened, I believe there should be a database. I also know of the image data that the Ministry of Education have consistently collected. My issue personally with usual tour, consistent tour of subsequent education minister is we should not reinvent the wheel. It is an easy thing to just go around and hear the people complaining about what has happened, leakage in the roof and all of that. I was fortunate to have traveled with Minister Soni as the president of the National Principal Association to the Southeast region and all of that. And let me say this to you, as we were going around and those people were presenting the case, as soon as they present their petition about how they want their schools to be and all of that, they will give 2 or 3 goats. Every time we went in that had a public schools, after the ministers passed and gave speech, the people gave their speech, they will get 2 or 3 goats or chicken. And when we were coming back, the pickup was filled with goats and chicken. In my mind, I said, I hope we'll not go eat the people goats free, and then years pass, their schools remain the same. And I can say this to you again. In some cases, there were some changes, especially with the RS project. But hearing the minister going around again and lamenting on similar thing that we saw. If the minister brought some goats again, I think then the people have given another goat again. So they just coming around eating our goat. This is why we as stakeholders are saying the Education Reform Act calls for decentralization. Now, for example, the Education Reform Act called for the establishment of the county school board, right? This county school board is empowered by the Education Reform Act to recruit, to vet, and recommend to the Ministry of Education. In fact, the CEO of the county is the Secretary General to the county school board. This county school board is supposed to be made out of prominent librarians in the county who are not on the board for money. People just misconstrue the issue of board, to say, oh, the board setting fee and all of that. When you are accepted on a school board, first thing to be appointed on a school board, it means you must have had some technical experience or contribution you can make to a school board. So schools trying to form a board must look for personalities that are not just there for money, but have reached a certain echelon in society that all they want is to contribute to their community. So a school will look in the community and look for a legal practitioner, someone that when the school is in trouble, they say, okay, this man is a legal practitioner. Let's make him a member of our board. Just in case in the future we'll have some legal issues, he can be there. This man is a businessman. Let's make him so that when we're having some business issue, and so you don't just appoint boards. So the Education Reform Act called for prominent citizens of the county to be appointed on the county school boards. And it calls for the county school board to recruit, vet, and recommend to the Ministry of Education who to become teachers as school administrators. Why is that so? If people from the local area recruit teachers from the counties, they will know that those teachers are residents of the place. They will know that those teachers got families in the place. Those teachers got relatives around. So we'll first start to get rid of the issue of ghost names, right? When you recruit here in Monrovia and send to Grand Gillette, you are sending someone in a community that is strange
to them.
People there are likely not to work with them. That is the reason why, in fact, LICOSESS has succeeded in her teacher training. Unlike the KRTTI, for example, that would take a teacher from Secretary to come to KRTTI to school for 9 months, leave the classroom, leave his family, leave his surrounding, and come to KRTTI for 9 months. Usually, research shows that when that person leaves their family and their village where they were teaching and come for qualification at KRTTI for 9 months, more than 60% of them will not return to their villages. Why? Because they have come to an urban area for some time. They see life. They are qualified enough. They can teach in any school. More so, there is this socio-economic issues that occur, especially with men. You leave your family for 9 months. You met some girl in Kakata. You see how Kakata has become a little bit urban and
you're leaving students behind.
You're leaving students behind, and you form a new family. Usually, you abandon your family back home. You leave the classroom empty. So usually, when those guys come and get a C certificate, they apply to some urban school and they remain right in Kakata or come in Monrovia, leaving the cycle of unqualified teachers in the interior. So the Education Reform Act, in the minds of the legislators and those who crafted this, was to make sure that counties are able to solve their problem. If Jack David is from River G and we put you on payroll, Jack David, you're not going to leave River G because you know your family. If you're leaving, there will be this information about where you're going. But if you posted Jack Davis to Nimba from Monrovia, obviously Jack Davis will disappear and no one knows the trade. So the Education Reform Act called for that. And I think there was some strides made by the previous administration. Let me say this. Oftentimes people think that when we as stakeholders, when we are talking about some of the issues that occur, people take it to be politics. But when we are discussing education, we come from the technical point of view,
of course,
not political. For any education policy to be successful, 3 actors must be on the table to make it work. We got the scholars, those who have made research into educational policy issues, linking it to the sustainable development goals, and saying that this policy initiative, when it continues, it will be able to end this cycle of poverty. It will be able to meet this sustainable development goal. That's the scholars. You also have the technocrats. The technocrats are those with the experience. They are not scholars, they are not writers, they are not the politicians, but the technocrats are the one who will sit there and look at you and tell you that, look, that thing you're coming to do here, it can't work, girl. Maybe you have heard people talk like that before. The old people in the town, they don't know book, but they will tell you that thing can't work here.
No.
Those are that can work here. Those are technocrats. So you got the scholars, the technocrats, those of the experience, and in this case, most times the stakeholders, and then you got the politicians. The politicians come with the political will, the technocrat come with the experience, and the scholars come with the data that is supposed to inform the policies. When these three people sit on the table and come up with suggestions on any education policy, nothing can make it not to work. That's what we call evidence-based. In the case of Liberia, what has happened? The politicians know all. The politicians feel they know all. They take over whatever sector. They don't usually work along with stakeholders and technocrats because perhaps, according to many of them, anybody can Google, anybody can research. But the technocrat, for example, if you went to a particular town, I will give this example to conclude on this note. If you went to a particular town and you wanted to construct a hand pump in the middle of the town, and someone from the town tells you, look, don't put a hand pump in the middle of the town because it will be useless. And you don't listen to them and you put a hand pump in the middle of the town because you want them to gain access to it. I have seen instances where that hand pump is abandoned because the ladies who want to go draw water at that hand pump, usually when the ladies going to pull water, they usually love to go long distances so that they can gossip about, what is going on. They love that long talk, along the way. So in many instances, when you put a hand pump in the middle of the town, it's so visible, it's so close, no time to gossip. The ladies will leave the hand pump in the middle of the town and go and draw water to the creek. That has happened in many instances. That is where technocrat and experience come in and say, look, put the hand pump there. There's the same thing with education. We are president of the Principal Association, the Teacher Association. We are there. We hear the day-to-day issues. In Bong, I was telling you about how teachers are still complaining about the deduction of their salaries. $3, $2 every month.
And I just want you to stick with that a little bit because this same bomb we're talking about, your keynote speaker mentioned the issue of civil servant salary increment, specifically teachers. I'm sure you also, threw some emphasis on that. And this education reform that we referencing now, section 8.13, talks about loans and to public school teachers and administrators. And I'm sure this is something because the motivation, the incentive for teachers, it will be something that will keep teachers in the classroom as well.
I can say this to you for free. The problem in Liberia education system now, especially regarding teachers, is no longer mostly about lack of qualified teachers.
Okay.
For example, my institution alone have trained 17,000 teachers from 1996 to 2024. 17,000, right? I can say this to you. University of Liberia have graduated a number, Cottington, the rest of it. The problem now is motivation. More than 70% of the teachers that have graduated from accredited institutions in Liberia are in the private sector. How much are private sector institutions paying? 7,000, 6,000. Look at the government pay itself. Now, unless we can start to look at motivation, the issue of remuneration, teachers' salaries. I made a comment in Bong and said, look, content knowledge and pedagogical knowledge that are needed to make the classroom effective for better learning outcome, most teachers have it. But content knowledge and pedagogical knowledge without food at home is called pedagogical content tragedy. You get a pedagogy, you get a content, but your story ends in a tragedy. a happy story with a sad ending. And I gave a scenario where a teacher, well qualified, goes to school. He didn't leave full money home. He has credited his cycle of salary over the month. No money is home. He goes to work. He teach, and he's leaving. He went to the principal for salary advance. No money.
No money. Yeah.
Imagine that teacher going home. And we're talking about integrity, right? We're talking about honesty, integrity. That teacher is going home, and a student maybe somewhere in Nima or Southeast. Most of these students are from the gold mine. All of that, they got money. A student walk over to you with $500 Liberian dollars.
Teacher have failed.
Yes. I mean, let's assume he didn't say anything, and just give you a gift. As a teacher, you should not usually accept gift, from a student, because it will influence your decision. What do you do when you don't have full money at home? Let's bring the human aspect of integrity to bear in this case. So the issue about Liberian teachers most time right now is not always the issue of or lack of unqualified teachers. I can say this to you: when a man is well compensated in any job, he will learn how to do that job. He forced to. If job you were taken from here and you are given a job, which one, as a tractor operator, right? You haven't driven tractor before, but they put that tractor in front of you job and they say your pay is $9,000, right? They give you that tractor and the key. Job, you'll be all on YouTube here, learning how to put that stuff on.
How to move tractor.
How to move tractor. Motivation is also a key to better outcome. Our problem in Liberia is we want the best out of our teachers, but we are not giving them the incentive, the learning and teaching materials. So I was calling for the President Joseph Yuma Boakai, to increase teacher salaries by at least 3 bags of rice. I can say this to you: how much for a bag of rice now? Multiply by 3. If our teachers and civils, and I'm not just talking about teachers, I'm also talking about civil servants. Do you know that those of us running school fees are now people complaining about school fee high, school fee this, school fees that. They are not taking into consideration that it is a cycle of poverty that is going on in our education system. Proprietors rely on parents to pay school fees for them to be able to pay teachers. When parents don't have the money to pay the school fees, proprietors will not have the money to pay the teachers.
Of course.
You understand? If proprietors don't have the money to pay the teachers will not take pay. And then the issue of integrity issues coming in private school. And I can say that over 30%, only about 21 to 30% of our schools are public. The rest in 70% are private.
Okay.
How is government intervening into the private sector by maybe giving them chalk? If those are still using chalk, giving them chalk, textbooks, and all of that. So that was the reason why, if I were to sit on any advisory board, any meeting, the first thing that I will begin to call for is for there to be a policy on teachers' remuneration. How private schools should pay teachers. The government has standardized it to a basic certificate. I think it's going to make 20 to 26,000 BSc something. But in the private sector, it's loose. Any proprietor, any international school can just pay any teacher anything. And that should not be. There must be a policy of the minimum salary for a C certificate holder in any school. And if you cannot meet that criteria, then you close your school down.
Okay, let me remind our listeners, you are listening to the Bumper Show. Dr. Benjamin Wehye, president of LICOSESS College of Education, is our guest on this edition of the program. Very shortly, like we usually do, open the lines. You can interact with Dr. Wehye. You have questions, you have comments, recommendations, you will have them coming through on the program. Dr. Wehye, I want to take us out of the country a little bit. Your recent trip to the United States, you had a couple of engagement with some universities there in the United States. I want you to give us a picture of how it went and what Liberia stands to benefit. I'm sure teachers, of course, will have a huge chunk of any benefit coming out of your interaction with the Augustina University, the Howard University, and all of that.
Yes, thank you. Oh, so basically, my tour, I want to say thanks to the public diplomacy section of the U.S. Embassy. I had gotten a visa from the U.S. Embassy to basically visit University of Sioux Falls. I've gotten an invitation from Dr. Randy Nelson, who was the director for international program at University of Sioux Falls. He has been in Liberia 6 times. In fact, he was with me in Bon County at the graduation, and he usually comes to Liberia to help us conduct trainings. He's currently ongoing with his English language trainings, and he thought to send a reciprocal invitation. And during when I was about to go, I said I cannot just go to US and visit Sioux Falls. So I visited the public diplomacy section of the US Embassy, and I was put in touch with Augustina University specifically, and I was advised to also visit Howard University. Those 3 universities I visited, specifically with Augustina University, which is key, and work has begun on our partnership. There is this 2+2 arrangement with Augustina University and LICOSESS, whereby a student can complete an Associate of Arts degree at LICOSESS 2 years and do his remaining 2 years at Augustina University in several departments, including early childhood, primary education, English, and I think one other department. So currently what is going on now is curriculum alignment that will see what we do here for the 2 years and what they do there for the next 2 years. So we are using all of the avenues that call for course alignment. There are international bodies that validate the course equivalents. We have submitted our curriculum to them. They are evaluating it and evaluating Augustina University to find a course equivalent with those two. With that, it becomes easier for the U.S. National Commission or whatever. Once there is a letter from, I'm just forgetting the name of the body, but once there is a letter from those bodies giving the equivalence of our courses that they are matched, then of course the university they will proceed, and then we'll go to the memorandum of understanding. So we've shared curriculum. They have also shared some resources with us in terms of how they handle their teaching, how to teach deaf students with deaf problem, how to hear, all of that. They have a full program in that.
I saw something about sound language.
Sound language, a bit specifically. So yes, that is good. And so besides that, I also went to learn best practices to see what we are doing is in a way resemble anything across the world. And I was happy to see what was going on and to hear some of the commendations.
Were there close comparisons?
Of course, with a lot of things we do. And again, I can say this to you, maybe because we are a single faculty institution, so we pay a lot of attention on what we do. And I want to say thanks to my predecessors and all of those that came before me in LICOSESS. We are not far off track. There are a few things we need to put in place to ensure that we come up to date with what is going on in the rest in terms of technology and the rest of it. With University of Sioux Falls, we are basically looking forward to seeing that we have some exchange in the area of English language. I've often said that we are surrounded by 2 large French-speaking countries, right? Guinea and Ivory Coast. Okay. When you were in school, Jab, I'm sure you were taught French, perhaps by a Guinean or an Ivorian.
I think it was a Liberian, but
yes, maybe he went to Guinea and something. Yeah, what I'm saying, most of them have this route. Either they are going to Guinea or Ivory Coast, right?
Of course, yeah.
Now, if we have most of our French teachers in the country from our neighboring countries who learn from there, we have one English-speaking country right next to 2 French-speaking countries. What is the reciprocal? How are we producing English teachers for this French children classroom in terms of teaching English as a new language or as a secondary language? We have not explored that opportunity, and we all sit in Liberia and say no job. So our relationship with University of Sioux Falls is in the area of aligning the curriculum in that area of teaching English as a new language. Okay. And so Dr. Nelson is even in the country to help our English department beef up the curriculum, and he's going to be offering some classes in that regard. I got a call recently from a fellow, I think Moses Carter, run an English program, standard English, and we're going to be collaborating with him very soon to see how we can beef up that. That was for Sioux Falls University. The Howard University was specifically interested in our research exchange. And it was quite interesting to understand that. I knew it before, but Liberia is a virgin country when it comes to research. We have a unique story of how we have been persistent in and resilient in our education sector. We may talk all of the mess about our education sector here, but when a Liberian leave from here and get into other education system, they usually are not the least. Okay. They are among the top flying colors. What is the story behind our success? Why do we don't even know how to define ourselves? The average Liberian will not watch a Liberian movie without commenting negatively. They will look at the movie, and once someone speaks broken English, they will start to condemn. But they will watch a Nigerian movie and they will hear all the stuff, and they will think that it's comedy. Why we don't love ourselves? Until we can come to a place where we appreciate the values, our resilience, our education. And many people will say we don't have system. The lack of system is a system in yourself. You notice that Liberians are good at doing certain things. The only thing I think we need to do is to recognize what we have consistently done, encourage it as a system. I said it, for example, I went to eat at the airport, in the US while in transit in Philadelphia, and the lady was asking for tip. I've always heard about tip in the US, but it's my first time for someone to ask me for tip. I'm an African, asking me for tip. In the Liberian sector, you ask for tip, they will say that what?
You begging.
They will say you begging. They will say that corruption. You shouldn't give tip. You shouldn't give tip. Tip like corruption. But tip is an acceptable habit in the US. So they call that a system, right? They have accepted it as a system. We need to understand what is it that are typical of Liberians, and be able to teach that as something that is unique to us, and it becomes our system. Instead of, you hear the typical Liberian from the state comparing us to the US, comparing us to, we are not United States, we are not Ghana, we are Liberians. Okay. So Augustina University is interested in African education research exchange, and we have already initiated that basis with them, and we're going to be continuing with provision of data that will enhance research.
077-835-862, 077-835-862, 086-616580, 086-616580. You can call those numbers. You will be live there. Still, you can put your calls through on 0772-876-481. You'll be live on the program, and you can speak to Dr. Wehye. Hello?
Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to my honorable president, Mr. Benjamin Wehye. I am PFMB Wehye, and I do join you from GSA Valley View. I am constrained to call because Dr. Wehye has been somebody in our education system pushing for the welfare of teachers and the standardization of education in our country. Mr. Wehye, I want to say thank you to you. I once attended LICOSESS for my C program, but due to financial constraint, I want to go back for my AA, and I will try my possible best to get back. I trust LICOSESS is system. The teachers that are there, they are doing well. One thing that I learned from you today, and I will always back you for, is what you said about the policy. God will give you years upon years until your dream comes to pass. Teachers must be respected so that we can put food on our family table. Dr. Wehye, thank you very much again, and I commend President Barker for appointing you on the National Education Advisory Board. Thank you very much. I'm PFMB Wehye again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wehye. You can call us on 077-835-862, 086-616-580, 0772-876-481, and you will be live on the program. I want to ask you something about LICOSESS again. A student at LICOSESS, maybe you went through the program halfway, and you thought to go to another university also to conclude your learning there. Is it possible? Is it that your whatever it is, your transfer, is it acceptable at these other institutions?
So yes, so quickly, let me firstly say that before we were elevated to the full-fledged bachelor degree program, our credits had been accepted by the United Methodist University, the Liberia Bible College, AMU, Adventist universities. But as it stands now, we are in a cohort of 8 universities whose curriculum in certain areas have been harmonized by the National Commission on Higher Education, specifically in early childhood and primary education. Cottington Advanced University of West Africa, Lofa University, Nima University, Bassa University, University of Liberia, and those 8 universities in that cohort. Obviously, there is this seamless transition between us when it comes from Associate of Arts degree to bachelor degree program. That's a 2+2. You can do 2 years at LICOSESS and go and do 2 years at Cottington.
Okay.
And they will accept that. Due
something
to
like the same arrangement with
Augustina University.
Okay, sure. Let me take this call.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, welcome.
Hello. Hello, Dad.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, let me thank you for your kind of transformation in the educational sector. You were one of those that won the best transfer award.
The best teacher award, yeah.
The best teacher award. Okay, fine. So, what are you doing now in terms of decentralization in other counties? You take the old region that you go to Granjide or you go to Sano or other area. Because we get 5 different schools in the area where teachers will not be able to move from one area to another area looking at the economic situation of the teachers themselves. So what are you doing in the process? First of all, let me thank you for taking LICOSESS from nothing to something now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. You want to?
Yes, I just want to say thank you. I think he's an elderly man. He knows the history of LICOSESS, of course, where it came from and where we are now as one of the biggest, not just in Liberia, but in Africa and the world. Our goal is to hit some of the rankings when it comes to educational institutions, and that's why all of these partnerships are being established to compare what we do with what they do. Of course, this issue of decentralization is not as simple as he thinks. Like I told you, we were initially in 12 counties and we have to reduce it to 6. And I agree with the former Minister of Education that we cannot just be all over the place without providing the quality needed. We have transitioned from the emergency mode that needed to train in-service teacher or in the classroom. And we need to move to a more sustainable mode that will see us having a facility that is that can train teachers that anybody can boast of. You can see that we are stationed somewhere. You go there, you see faculty and staff that can be evaluated, and that is where we have gone. Currently, we have a facility in Nima County. We've built our own facility in Nima County in the LPRC community. In Bong, we've laid the foundation on an acre of land. And that will be that project will be completed hopefully within the next 6 to 9 months. In my giving, we got a 1 acre also. We have not started construction, but within the next 2 years we're going to do. So we're moving to a more sustainable mode. And in Maryland, of course, where we are, we've gotten a parcel of land for Implibo to continue our program. So yes, we are making sure to decentralize.
Indeed, it's a gradual process. Hello, welcome to the Bumper Show.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Welcome. Yes, you live.
Yeah, this is Charles T. Cooper. I call from Coffee Duboro.
Okay.
Yeah, let me say thank you to Dr. Wehye. He's one of those mentors in our educational sector who is doing excellently well. And I think he has spoken well, especially on the issue of teachers' welfare. You see, in the private sector, most of the schools there are not doing well when it comes to teachers, amenities, and salary. You see, in our country, we have not learned to prioritize education because you cannot prioritize education without seeking the welfare of those who are the frontliners, who are the teachers. They are the ones who are doing most of the work, but then they are the ones who have been seriously marginalized in terms of salaries and other things. We have said over time that no PhD teacher should earn less than 500 in Liberia. You can have ministers who do not even have degrees. Some of them earn more than 2,500, 3,000 US. A teacher who went to school 4 or 5 years and his or her degree is earning less than 250, 300. I think it's not fair. The issue of public transportation in the governmental sector for teachers is, I think, we have been stretching from the Professional Teacher Association of Liberia.
Nigeria. We want to see that teachers too can be able to buy a piece of land, build house in 5-10 years time.
Okay, okay.
In this country, you work for 10-15 years, you can even buy a cycle.
All right.
So it's a serious marginalization that the government needs to look at.
Okay, and thankfully we have Dr. Wehye now on the advisory board who's pushing for this also. Hopefully, he can get something going from there. Dr. Wehye, we don't have much time. You want to?
I want to say thank you, Dad, for the call. And again, once you're emphasizing the advisory board, I just want you to underscore the word advice. You can advise your children, but I think with the minister considering how careful she is in initiating some reforms, I believe very soon she will begin to call stakeholders meetings, and we're going to see that. I look forward to seeing, like the last caller talk about transportation system respecting teachers. When I heard about the 300 buses that are coming, I look forward to seeing a teacher just flashing his ID card, to a public transport, and maybe paying 50% less. Those kind of things can make you proud. Going to school, you stop a public bus, whether that who stuff you show, whether that LICOSESS demonstration school, whether that Christ the King, you don't gotta be from a public school. But once you have a teaching ID card and you show it to that bus, you should have some reduction in your fare. Those are things that happen as we being all of these housing units across the country. 1, 2, or 3 could be for a teacher. For a group of teachers, especially the science teachers. We are going, science teachers are disappearing from our classroom. The minister made some comments concerning that. And we are not focusing on it, but we want the children to pass Wehye in the Southeast, in the other places, with the lack of science teachers. So these are things we're going to put on the table. I may not always be on the radio to talk about these since we are on the board, but I can assure you that we're going to put them forth, if not on the table, but through our publications. I've done several research. Once you Google the name Benjamin Wehye, you see several of my articles that I've written, and I think anyone who wants to gain insight on them can read them.
Thank you so much for coming, Dr. Benjamin Wehye, President LICOSESS College of Education, being our guest on this first segment of the program, and several issues we discussed concerning our country's education sector. Many thanks for coming, Dr. Wehye, and wish you well as you strive to help our teachers and our country.
Thank you so much, Jack.
Okay, so keep listening. Very shortly, we transition to something else.